Hello and welcome back to the Pocket Network Podcast, a podcast for real estate professionals like you to innovate your world. I'm your host, Margarita Petrosian, and each week I'll be sitting here with industry professionals talking about common challenges, ways to innovate the world. This week I have Artin Fallahi here with me. He's the CEO and co-owner of Option One Lending. Thank you so much for joining us today, Artin.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course, it's a pleasure. So how's your day so far? Business is good?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Perfect. That's what we like to hear.
Up.
Yes. Okay, so let's just jump right in. Let's talk about your journey here. What were you doing before home lending?
So my formal education is in engineering. I was in aerospace. I did over 10 years in aerospace industry and defense.
Wow.
So
basically you're also going to be selling us homes in Mars in a couple of years.
Exactly.
Perfect combination.
We're at 3% down.
Yeah.
So background engineering, I went to business school, and then at business school was a trigger for me. I decided I wanted to, have my own business and be in charge of my own growth, and that's when I decided to go self-employed. I looked into a few industries, but I've always had interest in real estate. And lending just made sense because of my finance and engineering background. So it was a perfect fit with my sales skills. So it's been a great journey.
Yeah, I love this story. It shows just with every podcast, just hearing the background of every guest we have, everyone has such a different journey. It's not like set in stone. So I think that's something really inspiring for our viewers as well. Mm-hmm. People that have, whether it's a different education or they started off in a completely different field, it's just you guys are the perfect role model to see that it's never too late and you can jump right in and be successful and have your own thing, whatever interests you, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, when I made the switch, I already had a family, a mortgage, and 2 kids. So It wasn't a easy decision, but I'm glad I made the switch, and it's, as I said, it's been an amazing journey since.
That's amazing.
It's good to feel in charge of your own destiny.
Yeah, and just that is such a great way to look at it because it definitely is a commission-based industry, right, that you're in.
That's
so
correct.
it might be kind of scary to people, whether because especially with you said you have a family. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the industry is going to look like. Even if you are fully committed, the industry, whether it's COVID or whatever other reason, you never know what you're stepping into. So what made you? Like, what gave you the strength to jump into that?
Yeah, so I had one of those, those light bulbs that turn. Everyone has that story of that one specific incident that triggered the switch. So I was in a corporate world. I worked at major corporations, including Amazon, and then in the defense side, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman. I even worked at a couple of startups. At some point when I was actually in the MBA program, there was a vice president in a company that I looked up to, right? Because he was Armenian, he was in the same industry, which we're a very small minority, right? Just being Middle Eastern or anything in aerospace defense industries, you're a minority to begin with. So I always looked up to him because I figured, okay, he looks like me. He he has the same background. He did the same technical education. He had the same technical education, and I looked up to him. And he climbed the corporate ladder, and he made it to the vice president. And he had a very high-paying, position. But then I was in my second year of the MBA program, and one day he just got walked out. So this is a 50-plus-year-old person who put 30 years in that career, and overnight he was out of a job, right? So that was the turning point for me. And from that moment on, I knew I cannot let someone else be in charge of my career and my income and my family. And from that point on, I started looking for ways to switch and move out of a salaried position. And so that was my turning point, because I pictured myself being a 50-year-old working on my resume and going from interview to interview, trying to find another high-paying job, which is very difficult to do at an older age.
Yes, for sure.
So I rather have the struggles now than when I'm 50 and 60, because I can build a business and then enjoy my
if you didn't take the first step today, God forbid you see yourself in the same position as your boss was.
Exactly. And I was middle management, but at some point I saw myself in his shoe, And I pictured myself 20 plus years later, and
Yeah.
I said, no, that's not what I want to do
Yeah.
with my life.
And
So
thank
that
God
was
you
my
did that,
turn.
right?
Yes,
You
exactly.
found what your calling, you found
Right.
an industry you're really successful in that brings you joy, that you're really good at, and a place where you can help other people.
Right, and that's when your network and connections matter, right?
Yeah.
Because if I didn't know a single person in the industry, it would have been very difficult.
Yeah.
So I started calling up my connections, my various friends, other people in my sphere that had very different businesses, from insurance to real estate to lending and so on. I looked into probably 10 plus of different opportunities. But it's interesting. I went home and I told my wife, I don't care if I'm selling shoes. I can't work for someone else anymore. So that was the turning point. But luckily, one of my really close friends, who's actually my business partner, is my best friend now. He was in the industry for many years. So I called him up and we had a meeting, and literally over a piece of napkin we wrote an agreement.
Wow.
And I quit.
That's
And he
amazing.
could not believe it, because we really believe in the DISC assessment, uh, personality test. So engineers tend to be very high C
Yeah.
and very calculated, right? He said, I cannot believe you're just going to let it all go. I said, first of all, I can get all that back. I can go get another job if this thing doesn't work out, but I'm never going to give this a try. So I literally quit on the spot. I gave my 2 week notice and I jumped.
How many years ago was this?
That was 5 years ago.
5 years ago. Wow. So you are way ahead of a lot of people. So I was reading some news articles about the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, where a lot of people were quitting their jobs. And when they were being
Right.
interviewed, they said, I'm going to start my own thing. I'm going to work for myself, because whether it's because they weren't feeling respected at their job, whether
Right.
it was that they don't see growth. So you were way ahead. It didn't have to, you didn't have to be a pandemic for you to realize, to be
Absolutely.
enlightened.
Yeah, I think the pandemic gave a lot of employees the sense of freedom, working from home,
Yeah.
being in charge of their own schedule. I mean, it can go both ways. It's also a negative thing in a lot of aspects. But for those that were looking for that one opportunity to spend time on their idea or on their side business, I think they got the opportunity to do. And
Yeah.
I know a ton of people who that gave them the freedom to give it a try, gave it a shot, and they're gonna make the switch. Yeah, unfortunately, everything in life is a risk, so you have to take a leap of faith.
Yeah, nothing is
sometimes.
guaranteed.
Nothing is guaranteed in life. You can walk out and get run over by a bus. So to sit there and analyze it and overthink it, it's just, you live the life once.
Yeah.
I mean, none of us know how much life we have left. So I figured if I don't do it in my 30s, I'll definitely not do it in my 40s. So that's why I made the switch.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's a really inspiring story. And but just knowing about your background, you have such a diverse background, especially for the real estate industry. So did you pick up things here and there from your corporate jobs that you have applied to become a very successful, top producing loan officer?
Absolutely. So everything you do in life, you add to your manual, right? So from every experience, whether it's family, friends, a job, I always tell people I worked at major corporations, but I actually learned more from my beginning jobs when I was 15, 16 years old. Dealing with average person at a sales job I had, at a retail job that I had, or for example, I worked as a wedding photographer, I worked as a salesperson, I worked at a bookstore. So those diverse positions I held, I learned a lot more than having a formal title at a corporation, because at a larger company, you tend to become a cog in the machine.
Yeah.
You tend to do
You have a very
one thing,
specific job.
very niche, specific, narrow focus, which is good because that's how things work better. But on a personal level, you don't learn much. So I actually launched my own business when I was 18 years old. I had a computer repair tech kind of a business on the side. So I learned a lot from there.
Yeah.
But absolutely, there is no bad experience in life. You either learn or you gain and you move forward. But
Yeah.
there's no bad experience in
Yeah, I
life.
completely agree with that, where the smallest, most insignificant seeming jobs
Absolutely.
might give you the biggest life experience, whether it's just social interactions or, like you said, with sales. And with your job, one of the things that I was speaking with Edward, so he's who I call our real estate guru
Yes.
for the Pocket Network. So he was saying how he and just agents he knows, they turn to mortgage loan officers as more educational material to guide them.
Yes.
So do you consider yourself someone that educates, whether it's realtors or home buyers, or do you see it more as a sales job?
Yeah, so I tell because at this point we have about 12 loan officers, right,
Yeah.
that we constantly coach and try to educate as well. And the first thing I tell them is, do not try to be a loan officer, be a consultant, right? So I have clients that I haven't done a loan for 3 years. For example, they bought a house 3 years ago, but anything financial that comes up in their life, whether it's a business decision, whether they're getting a divorce, whether they want to purchase a business, they'll call me and they want my opinion. And to me, that is worth more than any loan they'll call me for, because once you have their trust and you have enough knowledge for your clients to rely on you, the loans will come. So that's the easy part. The business will come. But absolutely, I work every day to educate myself even more so I can give more knowledge to clients and also to our business partners. So even realtors would call me and get advice on whether it's a city tax issue or an inspection issue. So I like to be there, source of all real estate knowledge if I can. So
Yeah, that's amazing because they can really trust you, and it seems like people are coming back to you for things that typically maybe it's not on your business website that you're a consultant or advisor, but they see that you have the knowledge and you have their best interest.
Correct.
So just going deeper into that, in your business, do you personally see that more of your clients are, or your, let's say your major contact list, is it realtors or just directly to the consumer?
So majority of my business comes from professionals. So 90% of the professionals are realtors. So what we call business partners, right? So if a realtor, for whatever reason, we've proven ourselves to them, they will trust us with their next client.
Yeah.
Whether if it was a failed loan that we jumped in and we saved it last minute, those things tend to stick with a realtor forever, right? Those are memorable things where you save the day, so you're the hero, right? So those are the best stories that we have. Or whether if it's a buyer who couldn't otherwise qualify and they never dreamt of owning a home, but we made it possible. So that's another memorable thing that tends to stick with the realtors. But no, I have in my book, I have real estate professionals, I have CPAs, family attorneys who refer me business, accountants, tax experts, a lot of business managers who manage high profile, high portfolio clients, like folks in the entertainment industry. They tend to not deal with a loan directly, so their business manager tends to do those type of things. But majority realtors, and then of course the direct clients, the consumer also will always refer you more business if they're happy with you. But as I tell the other loan officers, average person will only get a loan every 8-9 years, so you can't just rely on the client. The realtor is your client.
Yeah, of course,
So
that
we're
makes a lot of sense.
Purchase focused company. That's how we continue to grow the company in the same way. We focus on purchases and on realtors.
Yeah, and I love that you said that a lot of these realtors and the consumers, the reason they're coming back is because they remember you were there for them during a dark moment. Because if you think about the marketing aspect of a business, if you attach an emotion to the buying process,
Absolutely.
and it's at the end of the day, obviously it has to be a successful transaction in your industry, but just attaching that emotion, that's how you get them to come back.
Right.
That's how you get them when they're in need of another loan or another referral. They think of you because they think of how they felt at that moment.
Absolutely, yeah. Unfortunately, just human beings don't tend to recall positive moments as clearly, as vividly as negative things.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge in any business, right? So if you mess up one time and a transaction fails, everybody will remember your name. But you can close 100 transactions on time, ahead of time, keep everyone happy. But that tend to. So I make it my job, my focus to make sure everyone remembers the positive moments, and that's how you can grow your business. Because if people don't remember your name, they'll never, you know, not that they don't want to refer you business, but you won't
Yeah.
be top of mind, right? Top of their mind to remember
Yeah, of
you and
course.
refer you more business.
Yeah. And you said you had a sales job in early in your career. Do you
Right.
see like kind of like a full circle moment here? Are you
Very, very
using
much so.
anything?
Yes, yeah, all of it. Yeah,
That's
everything I
amazing.
learned in my past experiences. The one nice thing, and I discussed this with a lot of realtors, the one unique thing with real estate mortgage business is that you deal with every part of the social spectrum, right? I have clients who are driving Uber every day, and I have clients who have six, they're physicians, they have six practices. I have clients who own 35 homes. I have clients who are a first-time home buyer. So same with the education level, right? I have to deal with clients who may have, starting positions or lower end of the job spectrum. And then I have very highly professional clients. So it's a skill set you have to develop how to interface. You cannot talk to everyone in the same
Yeah.
language, same words, same demeanor even, right? So if you have clients who are uh, in a certain industry, you have to use their lingo, if you will, right? And that's not saying be fake, but you have to just be able to communicate with everyone
Yeah, of
differently.
course.
Same way how you speak with your husband or wife with a different language than your mom or your uncle or your best friend,
Yeah.
right? So the language and that's a skill set that you have to fine tune. And I think early jobs when you're younger, they help you fine tune that. And it's something, if you just had held no jobs in your early years, you just went to college and got a corporate job, you'll never have that experience to work on those skill sets. Because if you're in a department in a large corporation, you only deal with certain, let's say if you're in the accounting department, you only deal with accountants. You're
Yeah.
never going to know how to speak with the taxi cab driver or a doctor or a singer, right? Or an actor. So, I mean, if I look at all my clients, let's say closings in just a span of 1 year, there's a huge broad spectrum of careers and professions and um, backgrounds, even
Yeah.
cultures that you deal with.
Yeah,
And
I think
it's
that's a super important point to know your audience, because that's what, if they feel like they're understood, then they're more likely to stick around to see the end of the deal. So other than that, let's call that tip number one on how to be a successful salesperson in the industry.
right.
What's another thing, maybe a second really important point that you can share with people, like the secret to being a good salesperson?
So actually, I would say number one is honesty.
Okay.
Everything else, you can be a genius loan officer or a realtor. You can know everything. You can have every loan product and you can have the best rates.
Yeah.
But if you're not honest, tends to stick with people. And after, yes, you may do well in the beginning, but eventually it catches up with you. So you need to learn how to say no to people, right? Don't take on every transaction because you're trying to just do one more transaction. There are a lot of times where if I'm uncomfortable with the transaction or I know it's not doable, dragging the realtor, the buyers, the sellers through a mess of a month or 2 months of an escrow that you can't close,
Yeah.
it's not beneficial to anybody, and especially to yourself. So honesty is one thing that I have clients that I've turned them away or referred them elsewhere with no financial gain to myself, right? Because I recognize that product may not be best for us. So I referred them someone, and forever they will never forget that.
Of
and
course.
and I get their call, even though I didn't dare to do their loan. I get their Happy New Year call. Hey Artin, hope all is well. Hope all family is well. Thank you so much again for sending us, elsewhere, or finding us a solution that you didn't have, but you did your research, spend the time, and found us found a way for us to buy a home. So honesty is number one, and then I guess your knowledge is very, very important.
Yeah, of course. You have to know your work. Or else, no
Exactly.
matter how sincere you are, good-hearted, your intentions are amazing. If you don't know how to do your work, then you're just
Absolutely.
leaving people alone.
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, I mean, there's unfortunately in our industry, it's a very there are a lot of driven people who don't put the time to, you know, study what they're selling, right?
Yeah.
Because ultimately we're all selling something. Even if you're a doctor, you're selling something. You're selling your time, right?
Yeah.
So as a loan officer or a realtor, if you don't put the time to study, if you don't know what the tax rate is for a property you want to sell, and you tell the buyer something wrong, or if you don't know there's Belarus on that property, or if you do an inspection and you try to lie to your client just to make the sale,
Yeah.
those things tend to catch up with you, and eventually you'll be out of business.
Yeah.
And as many, I'm sure you've seen how many people are now in the industry. It's a very small industry, right? So everyone knows. I mean, if you have any business, people will know about you in the area.
Yeah.
So you can't hide, right? So it catches up with you, and you grow a reputation, and then everyone knows you for that reputation, and it's hard to undo it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's spend the time, study. It's better to start 2 months later, but be prepared. Than,
Yeah, I agree. So for people watching at home, the two most important points that we're focusing on today, number one is to be honest. And just it's so interesting because at least I want to say 3 other podcasts that were aired previously, that's the number one point for the tip for whether it's real estate agents, for mentoring, whatever it is. So obviously there's a lot to be said. If the different professionals in the same industry keep saying it, people are noticing you can't get away with lying no matter how much you see other people that may have gotten away with it. Not in this industry, not when you're dealing with people's money, their future, whether, like you said, it's a divorce or a happy moment, it doesn't matter. So you have to be honest with people and know your stuff. So those are the 2 most important points to be a successful salesperson. So it's not even technically on how convincing you are or people pleasing or whether if you're social. So the 2 important points, honesty, knowledge. And I think for me, what that says is anyone can do it. You don't have to be a natural speaker. You don't have to be someone that's talented at convincing people to do whatever you want them to do. You can do it. Just put the work in it and be transparent.
Absolutely. Yeah, as long as you put the work in it, and that's very important because that was going to be my number 3, right? So you can be honest, you can be very knowledgeable. Our business requires you to implement, right? So you can take 6 coaching classes, but if you go to the office at noon and leave at 4, and you don't make any phone calls, and you don't pick up your phone, and you don't do open houses, you're not going to succeed.
Yeah, of
so
course.
you have to put in the work. In our industry, it's that's the challenging part, because when you first start, you might not have any income for months, maybe even a year, right? As a realtor or a loan officer, it doesn't matter. So that first few months, it can be very stressful because you have to put in a lot of work and grow your book of business and identify who can give you business and what are your sources of referrals. And if you can do that, you invest that time for the initial few months, then you can start, you're planting seeds, right?
Yeah.
So for some people, they have a larger sphere, they know a lot of professionals who can refer them business, maybe that period takes 3 months. For a 22-year-old whose friends aren't buying homes yet, and they don't have
Might be a little more difficult.
More difficult, so you have to be more patient. And for those folks, it would be best to insert yourself into a successful team, so at least they can help you generate some income while you're assisting them. And that way you learn the business and you meet people, and at some point you grow and you start your own kind of business, right?
Yeah.
So
And going back to what you said about networking with the right people, you might know a million people in the industry, but if you don't build those relationships, then nothing's going to come out of it.
Correct.
Yeah. And also, you mentioned open houses. You said working open houses. I know realtors definitely do that, obviously, but is that something, a place that you would go to get business?
Yeah, so that's the place we would go, and so we encourage our loan officers to create those relationships and go open houses, not to get a buyer at that specific open house, which is a possibility, right? You
Yeah.
might come across someone who doesn't have a lender yet, and give them some information, add value, and hopefully earn their business. But most importantly is to help the realtor. So if you can add value to your business partner's business as well, automatically that'll generate business for you. You cannot just call and say, Margarita, give me a loan.
Yeah.
She's like, well, I got the same call 9 times today. What can you do for me, right? So instead of asking for business, first add value to their business, and then the referral will come automatically. Because if they can see that you're there to help them, support them, so the purpose would be to assist them in the open houses. A lot of buyers come in. The first questions are usually loan related. Every time I do a live with any realtors, or I do a office meeting with a group of realtors, all the questions are loan related, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a really
first time
important
home
part.
buyers, yeah. So for first time home buyers, they never ask. I want a 2-story house or a one. First is like, how much is going to be my payment, right?
Yeah.
Can I qualify? I only have 5% down. Can I do it? I had a bankruptcy last year. Can I do it? So it's all loan related questions, which it's not realtors' specialty. Now the good realtors, again, study, right? Be knowledgeable. So the good realtors learn
Yeah.
aspect of every part of their business, right? Which lending is a big part of their business.
Yeah.
So the successful realtors are very knowledgeable, and when something changes, they call their lender and they get educated. They're like, I have a couple of questions. I want to just make sure I'm up to date on these things because clients are asking. Having that knowledge separates you from the next realtor who just says, oh, I want to sell you a house. And they're like, well, can I do this? They don't know. And then they take a number and then they give it to their lender, and the lender has to call them. So it delays things in that few days or few hours even. They may find someone else. So having the basic knowledge, it definitely helps. And that's why I always make myself available to the realtors. I say, look, if I have PowerPoints on this, I meet them one-on-one, and I help educate them. So I go through loan products, loan lingo, right? And just basic information to help them capture that next buyer who may be
you're
otherwise
giving them the
on
confidence, the information.
Exactly. Right. You cannot be a realtor and just sell.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with
You have to know what you're
90%.
selling.
Right, exactly. You have to know about title. You have to know about title policies. You have to know what escrow does. You have to know how taxes work. You have to know what the new tax rules are, because clients want someone who can answer all their questions, right? If you keep referring people out for every small question, at some point they realize, are you just opening the door for me? Because I don't need a realtor like that, right? So it's very competitive. I mean, real estate sales is even more competitive than ours. Right.
Wow.
So there's, I don't know what the latest figures are, but it's tens of thousands of realtors just in LA County, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very competitive market. So how do you add value, right? You don't want to be the realtor who just writes an offer and opens a door. You want to be a realtor where people call and you're the source of knowledge, source of information, right? So same thing as basic tax rules. They may be, I'll give you a simple example. There are people who are hesitant to sell their home because they think they're going to get taxed on the gains. Let's say they bought their house for $500,000 and now they're selling it for $1 million. They may be hesitant because average person doesn't know these things. So if you're a realtor and they call you and you say, hey, are you married? They're like, yes. How long have you been living there? For 2 years. Oh, okay, you have a $500,000 exemption with the IRS. If you're married, on the first $500,000, you have an exemption on your taxes. Oh, great, let's sell it, right? But if you don't know that, you're going to try to sell it, right? You're going to try to convince them to sell their home, and then it becomes a salesy thing, then they walk away at some point.
Yeah, for
Because
sure.
they don't want to deal with the sale. No one likes a salesperson.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, right? we've been to dealerships.
Yeah, anyone can sell you something, but
Right.
if they're adding value, like you said, to the transaction, making it more
Right.
comfortable, just also knowing what questions to answer, because sometimes the client doesn't know what questions to ask. And if you have someone like Artin coming along and teaching you about the new updates, and you have this in your arsenal, before the client even asks the question, you might be able to address the issues, address the concerns, and that
Absolutely.
also comes along with experience, based on what other people have asked you. You know ahead of time what questions to address with your clients.
Right. Yeah. And the more transactions you do, you build up this knowledge base, and you know what first time home buyers questions, and then you start giving them answers where they didn't have questions too, right? They
Yeah.
never thought about such and such, and they're like, wow, that's great point, thank you for bringing it up. So it's really important. There are realtors who, unfortunately, sometimes we give the honest answer to the clients, and sometimes it backfires, and the realtors, why did you tell them that? I'm like, well, they need to know, right?
Yeah.
So, they need to know this this building has HOA losses, for example. I know you want to sell the unit, but the client needs, yes, honesty can sometimes backfire, but the upside is a lot more than the downside.
Yeah, it's
of
better
being
if it
honest.
backfires up front than during the sale process or at the
Absolutely.
end.
Right, or God forbid, even a lawsuit afterwards because
Yeah.
you lied to the client, and those things happen. We see it every day, where realtors lied on certain things, whether you're a listing agent or a buyer's agent, and these things can happen. So don't be so desperate to make that sale because you're going to do things that you don't want to otherwise do. So, the car salesman is a perfect example because all of us have experienced it, right? So you've had those moments where you walk into the lot and the person just wants to sell you anything. And then other times you walk in and a pleasant person comes in, they ask about you, they ask what you like, they tell you about the car, and at no point they discuss what payment you want to make, how much down payment
Yeah.
you want to, right? So that's the person you trust and you call every time. So be the person who's giving information and add value, right? Whether it's a client or a realtor, it doesn't matter. You're adding value to them.
Oh
So,
yeah, and the consumer, especially when it comes to spending big money, whether it's
right.
for a car or a home, they feel this and they're very wary. So to break down that barrier, they have to feel the honesty. They have to feel that you care and they're not just another paycheck.
Absolutely. And people notice. A lot of sales people think people don't notice, but people notice every, small point in how you bring things up, what you leave out. If you leave information out and they find out elsewhere, you lost their
Yeah.
trust already.
And there's some people, like my brother, who he has so much experience selling cars because that's his industry. And whenever I was shopping for my car, obviously he was the person helping
Right.
me, and he'll sit there and he'll let the salesperson talk and lie to him. And
Right.
then in the end, he says what he knows and
Exactly.
how it actually is. And do you think we're going to give our business to that person
No.
or the person who's being very honest and upfront with you and addressing all your concerns as a client?
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, people notice it. They may not notice on the first car they buy or the second, but they will. And then again, our industry is very competitive now, right? We're not standing at a car lot selling cars where people come to you. You have to go and earn the trust and get clients. So it gets more difficult, especially when you're new.
For sure.
You have
Yeah.
to invest the time.
Yeah. In the beginning, everything is difficult. It just takes a lot of consistency and, like you said, the hard work. And eventually, you will get past that hill, and then it seems like it's all downhill in a good way. Just you speed up with your business,
Right,
not
yeah.
downhill.
Right, the business actually grows exponentially because
Yeah.
your book of business grows, and then on the B2B side, if you will, right, like the realtor, the accountant side, once another realtor in that office sees that you're being very successful and the other realtor loves you, they tend to want to work with you. And I used to be very nervous in the beginning. I would call realtors and try to earn their business, and now it's the tables are turning, right? I get the call,
Yeah.
and this is the biggest compliment I can get, not number of loans I do, but the calls I get, and they say, I'm so and so from this office, can I work with you? And that's the biggest compliment anyone can
Yeah,
receive.
it shows that
And-
people are valuing your work
Right.
and they see that you are working for them.
Right. So that's why I say you have to be patient in this industry. You have to just invest a year, 2 years maybe, and build your book of business. You
Yeah.
cannot come in and expect to do 10 transactions in your second month. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, you will be very disappointed and hit a very low milestone in your career. And it's really hard to get past that. So your expectations need to be real. So
Right.
for people that post on social media, a lot of people won't post all the struggle they went through, or even if they did, maybe you're following them late in their career and you're not seeing that, but that's the reality of it. That's why mentorship
Right.
is also so important.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that drawing of the mountaintop sticking out of the water. I think it's a
Yeah.
snow thing or an iceberg, right? And you only see the tip, right? You don't see everything. Yeah, there's a lot of, obviously we do a lot of mentoring for our, for our LOs, loan officers. And sometimes they'll say, well, it's easy for so-and-so, they did 100 loans. I say, no, you weren't around 4 years ago where it wasn't easy for him.
How
right?
did they get there?
Right. Yeah. There was a lot of very calculated steps that person took, planted seeds, and 2 years later, he's taken, he's kind of taken the fruit of it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very slow business to grow into, but once you start growing it, as long as you maintain your systems, right? Because you can't grow and then let go of your system.
Yeah.
You'll lose the business faster than any other industry, because once someone gets into escrow, there's so many eyes on that transaction and so many people are wanting you to fail so they can get your business or they can take the realtor from you. So it's a very competitive business. It's a little bit, but as long as you maintain your system, your level of service doesn't go down with your growth, then I'm all about systems, right? So if you grow, you have to make sure your system is optimized, right? Whether it's your CRM, whether it's your database is everything, right? Data is everything, right? So that needs to grow with you. Your support staff have to grow with you. For example, for us, we always hire operations, and we have too much bandwidth. So we grow our bandwidth of ops, and then we bring on new loan officers.
Okay.
We don't hire in loan officers and then try to catch up, because it's going to destroy everyone else's quality of the process. So we're always one or two people overstaffed, because we try to train the ops, and it's easier to train them if they have nothing to do than to try to play catch up. So,
Of course.
Because it's easy for us to go,
Yeah, you would
recruit
rather.
5 more salespeople,
Yeah.
and then you have no one to work on the loans, processors, LOAs. So we always try to. So we're very ops driven. So our operation is all we have.
I think you're hitting a really key point there, because just with businesses now, we're seeing they're not able to provide the best customer service because they're understaffed. And if they were to meet these issues ahead of time, whether it's just having seasonal people on standby ready, or whatever it is, to hire more people, then they wouldn't be faced with these big issues just out of nowhere. And when there's demand and you're either training people or trying to find people, how are you going to do your work while you're trying to train someone or find someone?
Right. Yeah. We have a saying is, when you get busy, you're working in the business, right? When you're not busy, you have to work on the business.
Yeah.
When you're working in the business, you can't work on the business, and that's because you're busy. And I originate files. My partner, we're owners of the company, but he's a loan officer also, so he has his own origination, right? He has his own production. So we have our own clients, we have our own realtors, right? So we are a LO, but then we have to also worry about every other aspect of running a business. So when things slow down, we got to put all of our time on working on the business so we can grow it. And with new LOs, unfortunately, what I see with the industry, like even with the new realtors, is they have this huge goals. They get in, they watch a few Instagram videos, right? And they're like, I want to make, $2 million in year one. And nothing is realistic, right? Their goals. And then when you ask them, I said, okay, so now you're disappointed. Let's say they come and they're like, oh, I was going to do this 2 years ago and now I'm disappointed. I said, well, okay, you set the goal. Fantastic. You set a goal. but were you deliberate? What were your steps? Did you implement anything? Oh no, I had the goal and then I was going to do this. And I said, well, yeah, but a goal without a plan is a dream, right? I mean,
Yeah.
people have all seen those. Uh, so if you can't just dream things, I can also say I want to make $1 billion
Yeah.
next year, but what am I changing starting tomorrow? Because if I continue what I did last year, I'm not going to make $1 billion next year, right? So if you set a goal, make sure you have a plan. Our business, you have to be very, very driven. If you're not a driven person, if you can't manage your time, do not try it. You're going to fail, right? If you need someone to tell you what to do from 9 to 11 and then from 11 to 1, do not get into the industry because you're going to get disappointed. A lot of people, and that's the challenge with someone coming from a career kind of salaried position, because they give you the manual, they tell you A to Z what to do, and they tell you if you do these 3 things, you're going to get X amount of raise. And you have a bonus. If you do these 4 things, you're going to get a bonus. In our industry, that doesn't exist. Now, there are classes you can take, there are coaching we can do, right, to give you what's worked for so many other people. But if you don't follow it, and if
Yeah.
you're not deliberate with your time, nothing
Yeah,
can
you can't
help
just
you.
ask for the help, listen to the information, and hope something changes.
Right.
There's the work that you have to do. So
Absolutely.
even with coaching, we were talking to a mentor, Jackie, during a previous podcast, and one of the things she kept saying is, "I can't work with you if you're not ready to make motions towards your goal." So
Right.
if you're not, first of all, if you're not ready to take in the information, if you think you're perfect, what you're doing is working, and there's actually nothing resulting from it, then you need to go do some soul searching or whatever it
Right.
is, and then come back when you're ready to actually listen and try to make a change. Use that
Right.
motivation.
And don't get a mentor who is a family member who's nice to you and there's an awkwardness, because it'll never work, right? You want a mentor who is very blunt. And at work, I'm a very friendly person, right? With my friends, with my clients. At work, when it comes to the loan officers, when they need advice, I'm as blunt as I get. And I said, you can get upset. I'd rather you get upset and be successful and thank me later than tell you just, yeah, you're doing great, amazing, keep doing what you're doing because you did no loans for the last 6 months. So I rather be honest and straightforward with the, because you're doing them disservice, right?
Yeah.
If you're a mentor and you're just giving someone a nice speech, and then they go off, and then 6 months later you meet again and you give them another nice,
That's your last client, if that's what you do.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, if that's what you do professionally, then that's your last client.
Yeah.
But even within teams, right? Because in real estate and loan business, we have a lot of teams, right? When you first start, you want to be in a team. You want to learn, you want to touch loans. If you start and you know nothing and you sit in the corner, you're never going to work on a loan for probably a year or 2. So how are you going to learn? There's no manual of loans, right? We don't have a loan degree program where you can go through the program.
Yeah.
Through licensing, you learn nothing. Nothing you learn in licensing has anything to do with actually doing a loan. Same with the real estate exam or real estate courses. Everything you learn in the real estate exam, none of it helps you sell one home. Right.
Yeah, so those
It
are just
helps
the
you,
facts.
right? They're good. The guidelines. They're
Yeah.
telling you what's legal, what's illegal, or
Yeah.
do this or do this is the process. But they don't teach you how to even write an offer, right? So you have to learn it from somewhere. So you have to be in a team or teamed up with a broker and work on their transactions, and that's how you learn. Every successful realtor I know who do multi-million commissions now, they were all part of a team at some point, right? You got to start somewhere. And that's how they grow their team. And their team eventually, if they're good, they take off and do their own thing eventually, right? So that's always been the flow of things.
Yeah.
But for loan officers, same thing, right? So if they come and say, how do I get a realtor, right? It's a very, very common question. How do I find this realtor who does this much business? I say, okay, well, you got to invest time, you got to do these things, and you got to do it with 10, 20, 50 realtors, and hopefully 2 of them, you'll make a connection and start working together. 3 months later, if they come back, of the 10 things, they only do number 1, and then they get disappointed.
Yeah.
So that's the natural things with an average professional in our industry.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and it's
Right.
also just as a person really hard to get past failure. So if you have someone pushing you in the right direction, someone who has your best interests at heart, that definitely does make a change. For successful people that I've spoken to, whether that's a mentor or, like you said, a team of just like-minded people working towards similar goals, and also someone that's not just viewing you as competition, but actually looking out for your interests. That's the most important
Right.
thing.
Right, yeah, and holding people accountable is our job, right? So I think that's the value I add. Anyone can, build a brokerage. Anyone can do loans, process loans, and hire loan officers. The value that we have, and we believe we have, is that accountability. We can give the knowledge, but we hold the loan officers accountable, even though they're self-employed. Uh, it's their own business, right? There's no salaries. So, but we would do them this service if we didn't keep them accountable and we just high five them every morning. They're not going to grow.
Yeah, and it's
So,
at the end of the day, it's also your business. You
right.
want people to be successful in your group because you're
Exactly.
benefiting from that too.
Exactly. And we invest a ton of time. So imagine if I have to invest hours and help someone do one loan, I'll just do one more loan. So that's the logic. So you want people who fit your culture, first of all. I don't need them to be the, high IQ or, there's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Right. So it's, you want someone who comes in, gets in, and is all ready to go and says, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to be successful. And we've had loan officers like that who joined us only 3 years ago. And last year, let's say he closed over $100 million in volume.
Wow.
Right? From zero. Right? But that is a unique person. That person doesn't have a PhD in loans, right? He's still in his 20s, but he was driven enough and said, I'll do every step, everything you tell me, I'll implement. Am I going to make it? We said, yes. If you follow the plan, it worked for me, it worked for other people, right? So just stick with the plan and implement. And he was deliberate with his time, and he's still very deliberate. No matter how much he grows, it's his personality, right? So he's organized, right? Which is very hard to come by in our industry because people who are, let's say, driven and they're good at sales, they don't tend to have good organizational skills. So if you're driven, you have good sales, you have to teach yourself that. You have to realize that I'm not good at this, let me work on it. Hire someone, right? I mean, it's a very profitable business. You can afford to have an assistant.
Yeah.
So if you can learn, hire an assistant. Don't jeopardize your system and your process because it's going to be gone. As fast as it came, it's going to, you're going to lose the business to
Yeah,
elsewhere.
organizational is definitely important when you don't have a normal 9 to 5 where you sit down and you know what you're supposed to do, when you're
Exactly.
supposed to leave.
Someone tells you what to do.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah, especially for people that are not morning people, you've already
Right.
wasted part of the day by
Right.
sleeping in. So you have to have the rest of your day pretty organized. You have to be a really motivated person so you don't just waste too much time doing whatever else it is you do during the
Absolutely.
day.
Yeah. Loan officers who would come in and say, okay, I want to call the realtors today. And I say, well, it's noon. 10 other loan officers already called them,
Yeah.
right? So you have to be very driven and organize your time. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And then, between the live loans, you have to always work on your pipeline, right? You can't just put all your focus on the loans you have because same with the realtors, right? Just because you have two transactions in escrow, you can't just let go of your pipeline because then
Yeah,
you
you have
no
to think
income
of the
flow.
future.
Right. You have to constantly feed the pipeline.
Yeah.
And that takes discipline. You have to create your own 8 to 5 job, if you will, right? You have to create your own, and you have to fire yourself if you're not good.
Yeah.
And go.
Oh, yeah. It's really important to know when to stop, to cut your losses.
Right.
So, with just such a busy schedule, when there are any major changes in the industry, whether it's interest rates, whatever it is, where do you think, what's the most important source of information?
So there are a number of industry publications that we subscribe to.
Okay.
The most important thing for us is the bonds market. So we watch the bonds market closely. So we pay for a couple of services who break down the bonds market for us. They monitor it. They alert us when things are changing with the stock market, the bonds market, or the treasury notes. Uh, we have daily briefings that we read and we watch to keep our information up to date. And that's how we make decisions when the client says, should I lock today or should I
Yeah.
wait a week? So we can give them an educated guess. I mean, no one always has the answer, because if you knew what the future holds, then
Of
you don't have
course.
to work, right?
Yeah.
I'll sit at home and day trade. But at least we have enough information. We monitor, for example, unemployment data. We know what day it's going to come out in the month. Unemployment data has huge impact on our rates. When unemployment goes up, it's good for rates. When
Okay.
unemployment goes down, any good news is bad for rates, right?
Yeah.
So we monitor inflation, for example, inflation data, or we monitor mortgage delinquency rates, right? So we're at very low historic delinquency rates, which is good, meaning people are making their payments. So that's where we get our information. And then us particularly, because we're not tied to one specific bank or lender, we have our direct channels, but also we are approved with over 24 investors. So we
Oh,
have
wow.
over 24 banks. So makes our job harder. We have
Yeah, to catch
flexibility,
up.
right? So we have hundreds of loan products. So if you're a loan officer, you want to get educated, you don't have just two products. Let's say if you're a loan officer at a retail bank, let's say B of A or Wells Fargo, you have 3 loan products. You can learn
Yeah.
everything in a week, right? For us, we have over 24 banks and investors. We have hundreds of loan products. Guidelines are all different, right, for the more portfolio products. And then conventional, same rules apply to pretty much everyone.
So when you get all this information, when you find out about all of these changes or forecasts, you mentioned earlier that when you go to open houses, you also provide the realtor there with that information. Do you have some kind of a process right now, like where you are able to put all of that into like whether it's a summary or a short presentation, and you're able to send that out to agents you work with?
I have two different versions of it. So for new realtors that I meet, I have a presentation deck that I like to go with them personally.
Okay.
It used to be over Zoom, so I would put a PowerPoint and walk them through the different products we have, how our process works, how I want to be introduced to the client, what I prefer, what they prefer, so we can kind of get it all out of the way. For example, I love texting, right? So I tell the realtors I prefer texting. If you want to get my attention right away, shoot me a text. If you want me to keep you and the client up to date, send a group text. I'll organize everything. And if I see a green text, I can't work with you. Just kidding. So I'm a big,
So you guys work with
Apple
Apple.
user. So, but no, that was a joke. But we have, so I have systems that I like that works for me. With existing realtors, if something major comes up, I usually will actually text them.
Okay.
I say, hey, heads up, rates are up 0.5%, for example. Beginning of the year, rates
Okay.
went up. So I notified all my realtors that I closely work with. I send them a quick thing because I said, look, use this as a driver. If someone is on the edge, they don't know if they want to buy now or 3 months, rates are going to be in the fours. So let them
Yeah.
know that information. You're not scaring them. You're giving them actual factual data. And then I have email blasts that I send to my sphere. And it's not just realtors, but professionals in the industry that we keep them up to date on certain news. And then ongoing market data, we have CRM, which is curated data on
Yeah.
the real estate market, on the builder data, how many homes were built, delinquency rates, occupancy rates, home ownership rates. So things of that nature that's very interesting. It's infographical. So our CRM automatically sends those
Yeah.
out, and people love them because they're infographic,
Oh yeah, for
easy
sure.
to read.
I'm imagining as a real estate agent, just finding clients is already difficult enough. So your
Right.
whole day could be just pouring over numbers or calling people up. And if you have someone doing that work for you, that's a huge weight off your shoulders. And obviously, if I were to put myself in their place, who am I going to turn to if my client does need a loan? The person that helps me out.
Right, yeah. Good realtors always have a very trustworthy title specialist. So if they have any title related questions, they're just a text or a phone call
Yeah.
away. And then obviously their lender, because Uh, Cash buyers are a very small percentage of the markets. Everyone needs a loan.
Yeah.
So, and that's usually their first question. Anyone that door knocks or calls a buyer, the first question usually has to do something to do with the loan.
Yeah, to
So
whether
it's
you're
good to have
pre-approved or whatever the
right.
question
So it's
is.
good to have someone trustworthy, uh, not only good at their job, but trustworthy so they can tell you, hey, this is not a good client for you. Like, don't
Yeah.
waste your time, right? But if you're not the right person, you're going to tell them, oh yeah, let them send me documents. So now you're wasting the realtor's time also, because there's no outcome, right? You're
Yeah.
just trying to look like you're doing something, but you're not doing them
No
any
help at all.
service. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, just we keep talking about COVID a lot. I feel like with every podcast because it's definitely affected the industry.
Right.
But with your business specifically, have you noticed before COVID and then during COVID a difference between the amount of people refinancing versus purchasing?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned in the beginning, we're very purchase focused business, right?
Yeah.
So as a lender, you can choose to go after purchase market and have lots of connections with the realtors, and that's what we invest all of our energy and time into, because purchase market is always there. It's more sustainable. Refinances. So in 2019, towards the end of the year before COVID hit, at some point rates are near 5%, right? So an average healthy market, a good rate is 4.5%.
Yeah.
I'm referring to just a conventional, regular primary home 30-year fixed. So rates went up, and our refinance is always about 20% of our business, luckily. So we're very heavy
Yeah.
on purchases. We like to keep it 80, 20, 70, 30. So like 30% max on refinances. And then all of a sudden the government to stimulate the economy and the mortgage and the real estate market, they started buying mortgage bonds. So just to do a short overview of how mortgages work. So our mortgage rates are not actually tied to the Fed rate. So the prime rate, it has a very long-term effect on the mortgage rates, but not a short-term effect. So every time the Fed rate drops to zero, I get calls like, is your rate zero now?
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's a whole different, that's an interbank exchange rate, right? So that's how the banks borrow money from each other. It's nothing
Yeah.
to do with how you. So the way mortgage rates are driven is how much supply of money there is. So the way it works is someone buys a mortgage bond, they give money and they buy a bond that pays them interest over time, right? And that money goes into a pool, and Fannie and Freddie lend money from that pool.
Okay.
And what happens, there's an intermediary bank, let's say me, right? Or Wells Fargo or B of A or Citibank or hundreds of them, right? And the banks we deal with are wholesale mortgage lenders. So they only do mortgages. They don't have an office, they don't have branches, they don't have credit cards, only mortgages.
Okay.
So the way they do is they come to your client, give you a mortgage for $500,000. They make a little bit of fee on that, and then they sell that to the secondary market, which is Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are quasi-government organizations. So they were private, but then they caused the crash. It's a long story. There's a lot of good movies on that.
Yeah.
But now the government runs them. So they're
Okay.
kind of quasi-government entities, right? Even though they're still corporations. So they, in turn, buy that loan for a profit to that banker. They give their money. So the bank now has more money to go lend. So that's how the circle goes. When the COVID hit, government became a bond buyer. So they started buying bonds, which in a normal market like today, they don't buy mortgage bonds.
Yeah.
So what that does, it injects money into that industry, right?
Yeah.
And then when your supply of money goes up, it gets cheaper. Imagine if there's too much gas, your gas station will have to compete, right? So the
Yeah.
price will continue to buy. It's like supply demand, like exotic cars and watches now, right? Supply is down, demand
Yeah.
goes up, and prices go up. So with the mortgage bonds, because of the bond purchasing that the government was doing, which they stopped beginning of this year, the rates plummeted, right? The rates, we were seeing 15-year mortgages at 1.75%
Wow.
we were doing, right? So this is never seen ever before, right? So we were at all-time lows. And 30-year, we're hovering around 2.5%, 2.7% 30-year fixed. That's why the rates dropped and the refi boom happened, right?
Yeah.
We've never ever done as many refinances as we did in the 2020 and 2021. And there was a little bit of fluctuation in 2021, but the rates went back down, but then it all ended. So refinance is nice when it's there, but we don't want to be a refinance business
Yeah.
because it's just not sustainable. Right now, we probably do refinances. We're down to probably the 20-30% mark, which is
Okay.
where we like to be.
Yeah.
So our focus is on purchases. There's always going to be some refinance. People want to pay off a partner, they cash out. People want to build a pool, they want to build an ADU. They get divorced. They had a high rate for whatever reason, they had a private money, let's say, rate, and now they can refinance. So there's always going to be some refinances, but not to the levels where we saw in the last
Yeah, that makes sense.
previous 2 years after COVID.
Yeah. And how about just the interest in home ownership? I don't know, maybe it's because social media is more concentrated now, but I'm noticing more people buying homes. Is that true or?
Yeah, so if you look at the home ownership trend in the US, I think mid 2000s towards the crash, we approached that 70% mark. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're at 69-70% mark home ownership rate, which was extremely high.
Yeah.
And then we went down to the normal levels in the mid 60s, and I think now we're approaching that high all-time highs again. The rates were definitely a driver.
Yeah.
Also, there's the herd effect, right? So when your cousin buys and then in 6 months their home is worth 100,000 more, you feel like you're missing out, right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
FOMO effect, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, oh, I want to buy a house, even though if you weren't thinking about it.
Yeah.
Now at those rates, and rates are still really low, right? Rates are still pretty good. But at those super low rates, everyone thought it's free money, might as well go and purchase a house. So that was one macro effect where the rates, the more localized, like in our in our market, in our let's say Los Angeles, there was a lot of money injection, right,
Yeah.
into the pockets of business owners, SBA loans. I had clients who would call me and say, got an SBA loan, I don't have to pay it back for a year, there's no payment, what do I do with it, right? So you're not supposed to be buying a home with the
Yeah.
SBA funds, right? Which is another podcast topic. I think someone who's
For
an
sure.
SBA specialist can tell you. But there's going to be a huge fallout from that because you're supposed to use the funds for
Business, yeah.
developing the business, not purchasing a home. So, and PPP money, and there's a lot of things in the news now, right, with PPP fraud. So in our local market, we saw a lot of effect from that, SBA, PPP. I had clients who didn't pay their mortgage for a year and a half. They went on forbearance. And they would call me and say, I saved $60,000. I've never had
Oh my
$60,000 in my account. And this is someone who bought their house with 30% down. And then unfortunately, government didn't create a qualification for it. They just
Yeah.
said, oh, you want to go on forbearance? No problem. Just fill out this form, sign here. You don't have to pay for a year, 18 months, 6 months, right? So whatever the period that bank gave you. So all these buyers, they had money now, right? So they come back and there's no repercussion, right? We used to have. You used to short sell your home and the lending rules would prevent you from getting another mortgage for at least 18 months. Now it's only 3 months.
Oh, wow.
So
Is that a recent change or?
no, it's when we were in the pandemic, that was the rule, right?
Okay.
It's a federally mandated rule, right?
Yeah.
So if you have a conventional loan, you have to abide by those rules. So if you were on forbearance, let's say you didn't pay your payment for 12 months, you can take everything owed and push it to the end of the mortgage. So let's say you owed the bank $50,000 and you had 25 years left on your mortgage. Now you'll have 27 years left on your mortgage. So it just extends your mortgage,
Yeah.
but it doesn't change your payment, which is fantastic if you're a
Yeah.
borrower. So, and then as long as you make 3 consecutive successful payments, now you can go get a new mortgage.
Wow.
And you have all that money saved in the bank.
Yeah.
So it put a lot of monopoly money in people's pockets, right? So between forbearance, between all the government assistance programs, all the tax credits, PPP, SBA. I think there's just too much injection of money into the industry,
And
into
that's
the market.
probably why the home prices shot up.
Right. So that was one of the factors. Obviously, so that's one factor. Rates are a factor. The other factor, which actually we saw a lot, and I heard it, firsthand, was people working from home. They realized how small their home is.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're a husband and wife with two kids and you're both working, you're barely home. So you never notice, my bedroom was smaller. I have
Yeah.
nowhere to put a computer, or I can't even fit a desk in my master, So it's like those things people realized that their neighborhoods matter. They can't go for a walk. They're home. So you go for a walk and you don't like your neighborhood, right? So those were also a factor. And some of these people were on the fence for years. They were waiting for something. I don't know what, but they were waiting and they realized, no, they can't. They need a home. So this was another factor. So there are a lot of factors, but I think those were the major factors.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. There were homes that were selling for over 100K over the asking price. So it was blowing my mind. But with talking with you now over all those points, it definitely makes sense with all the
Right.
injection of money.
Yeah, I mean, luckily one of the, this is very unique to the US, right? Probably the only country in the world where you can borrow at 30 years fixed for nothing, right? Even at 4% is ridiculously low. So a lot of countries, you have to save up so much for just a down payment. So it prices a lot of buyers out of the market. We're
Yeah.
here, this year, we just raised the conforming loan limits again, right? LA County conventional loan limit is now 970,000,
Wow.
right? So imagine
That's
someone.
nothing in LA County. You can get like a studio apartment.
Right, but this is a buyer who has only 3.5% down and can buy $1 million house.
Yeah, that's
right. This is
crazy.
unheard of, right? These limits just a couple of years ago, just 4 or 5 years ago, were in the 600s.
Wow.
So we went from 679 to 970 in a matter of 3-4 years, which
Is there like some kind of an income limit change with that, or it's the same person that used to qualify for 600 qualifies for
No,
9?
no. So that's the limit of where. Remember, I was saying the government will purchase the home, so
Yeah.
that makes it a conventional loan. Your
Okay.
income, you still have to qualify.
Okay.
So income, nothing major changes with respect to income. You still have to hold. You have to meet a certain debt to income ratio criteria. You have to have certain credit, right? So that aspect of lending hasn't changed much.
Okay, that's
in the
good.
recent
That at
years.
least protects people that don't understand.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot of rules been implemented since the crash on predatory lending.
Yeah.
There were loans that were negative amortized loans, meaning every month you made a payment, your loan actually grew instead of shrinking.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of funky things back then, right? Zero down, interest only,
Yeah.
things like that.
We're
So
finally
now,
protecting the consumers.
right. Yes. Yeah. A lot of that comes with education. So the banks learned it the hard way, I guess, and then the consumers, same with the consumers. We have a lot of non-conventional loans now, and that's part of the market that I think is going to really grow in 2022 is non-conventional lending. So these are loans that the average bank doesn't have, the
Yeah.
government doesn't buy, right? And that's our portion of business that's growing on a daily basis.
And is that easier for the consumer to be approved for
Yes.
non-conventional?
Yeah, so because on those programs, we usually require more down payment.
Okay.
It's not 3% down, it's not 5% down. Usually you have to put 10, 15, 20 or
Yeah.
more. That's why the rules are less stringent, but these are portfolio products, meaning the investor makes up their rules because it's their own money. They're not selling it to the
Yeah, of
government,
course.
so they have to meet that criteria.
And for those criteria that the investor is making, do you sit down with, whether it's the realtor or the consumer, whoever's buying the home directly, do you go over every point, or is it up to them to go over the contract?
No, it's both. So everything is over disclosed now, right? Since the crash of '08. So we disclose the loan terms at several points in the process. It's not a one-time notary.
Yeah.
It's several electronic disclosures, and then it's a print at the end,
Yeah,
loan
for them to
document
take home.
package to sign with the notary every page and the initial. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of the obviously the more niche products are harder to understand. So we have to explain it to the client what it entails from beginning. There are still interest-only products out there, right? Some people prefer that. Those are usually now left for savvy investors who know what they're doing because they want to invest. They have cash flow goals, so they go interest-only, for instance, or they're going to flip the property in 2 years, so it doesn't matter
Yeah.
if they have ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, right? So, but they're not as prevalent as they were back in before the crash of '07,
Okay.
'08. So yes, we have adjustable rate mortgages, but they're clearly disclosed. Consumer knows what their risks are. But again, usually those are the savvy consumer who knows what they want. They want a 5-year term because they're going to sell it in 4 years for you.
Yeah, I think that's like a really complicated process, and I've heard that some people will include a lawyer in the home buying process. Do you see a lot of that? Whether it's for just closing or just the entire process, have the lawyer assist them with all the paperwork, the contracts?
No, I've only had that. I think I've only had 1 or 2 cases like that where an attorney was involved, and that had to do with the trust doing
Okay.
a sale,
Yeah.
like a trust sale, or the trust was purchasing a property, so the attorney was involved. Usually, I mean, an average client doesn't have an attorney. They rely on their uh, realtor. Again, very important to find someone who's not too salesy and trustworthy, and usually that comes from a referral.
Yeah.
If your family member did a transaction with us, then usually they refer.
Yeah. Well, referrals and social media too, right? Do you guys get a lot of clients from social media advertising?
So we don't advertise on social media.
Okay.
I try to put social proof out there, meaning
Okay.
closing
Yeah.
success stories. So I tend to share, and then I will market the realtor also. So if we close something with a real estate agent, we will create flyers and post with them so they can reshare.
Yeah.
And it's good for their social, kind of branding and presence.
So not too much lead generation through social media for you specifically.
Lead generation honestly comes organically. So
Okay.
every time I do a information session, if I do a live, I usually get a bunch of questions. Some percent of those questions eventually turn into a client.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
it's a lot of.
So it sounds like just posting the educational material just attracts the people
Yeah,
to come
again,
in.
it goes back to adding value.
Yeah.
If you post a video on social media and say, I do loans, call me, there's 1,000 other people who do
Yeah.
that. But if you put information out there that's beneficial to someone, they're going to remember you when they need you.
Of course.
So you just got to be constantly top of mind. So I think this generation, if you're not on social media, it's hard. I'm not saying you can't be successful, but it's very difficult to be
Yeah.
successful because
Yeah, because a lot of people, if they keep seeing your name and just seeing your content, they're more likely to trust you. And it's easier to just, if someone keeps popping up on your Explore page, or you see your own friends who have homes liking
Right.
their content, it's easier to find someone that way than Google loan officer and like how many people will pop up
right,
in your
thousands
area.
of people will pop up on Zillow or Yelp or Google that they do loans. I think for realtors, it's even more important to make sure they constantly show their activity,
Yeah.
they do open houses, and it's your presence, right? So if it allows people to see what you do, because you can't just keep sending them a flyer every day.
Yeah, and talking about Zillow, so obviously I do my research on every guest that comes in.
Yes.
I saw that you have 118 reviews on Zillow.
Yes.
All of them were amazing reviews. So is that something that just happened the more clients you had, or do you ask for
So
reviews?
again, you have to be deliberate, right? So when I congratulate the clients, I send them links
Okay.
to Zillow, Yelp, and Google. So
And this is via text?
I do both. So I do
Okay.
the text and I do email.
Okay.
So, and I follow up. I keep following up, and
Yeah.
I make it a point. And especially when the client is very happy, I get a lot of gifts from my clients all the time, which is amazing.
Yeah.
But they'll send lunch, they'll send me drinks or gifts. Every time the client is even extremely happy, I always make it a point. I say, thank you so much if you don't mind, I'll send you a quick link.
Yeah.
If you can write a quick review, I'll really appreciate it. So that's how I grew it. Some people write it organically, but you have to make it a point to ask for it.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
And I think that's really difficult because with clients that I've worked with in the past, that was one of the things where they asked me, how do we get people to write reviews for their business, whatever industry it may be? And a lot of the time you might ask the client, and whether it's because they forget or they're just too busy, whatever the reason is, most of the people they asked weren't actually writing the reviews. So they had to get them in person, like, can you come to the office computer, write a review right now? But that's kind of uncomfortable. And what if the client doesn't want to write the best review right in front of you?
And just a point, Zillow is very strict with the reviews.
Yeah.
So if you get people to come in your office and write your reviews, they'll block your account after a few because they tag the IP address.
Yeah, of course.
So Zillow is very difficult. So that's why on Zillow, if you send them a link, or if you have too much involvement, they'll flag it.
Okay.
And you won't show up there. Same with Yelp. Yelp will put your review or hide it.
Yeah.
Until
I've noticed that about Yelp.
Creeps up all of a sudden. It's weird.
Yeah.
But no, I make it a point. I ask, I call, I text, and most of the clients, I like to say, they offer it. They're like,
oh, wow.
Can I write your review somewhere a bit? Yeah, I really appreciate it. I'll send you the link so you can just click. Yelp and Google are very easy because people are usually logged in on their phone.
Yeah.
So when you click on it just opens Yelp and you just write your review. It's very easy.
Yeah.
Everyone has a Yelp account, at least the younger generation, right? Same with Google. Everyone has a Gmail account. They're logged in already. So Zillow is the one that takes the extra effort. That they have to create an account, verify the account, and then write your review.
Yeah, but
So
the fact that people
steps.
are actually asking you, that just goes to show how important these reviews are and how much people rely on them.
Right. And some realtors, they go read it. We submit an offer. Time and time, I call the listing agent because that's something I do. When an offer is accepted, I call and introduce. I say, look, I'm doing the loan just to give him a peace of mind. Hey, everything's been checked. Don't worry about the loan. It's straightforward. We've vetted everything. We have credit, we have income, all that. And then sometimes the listing agent will say, yeah, I Googled you and I saw you had great review. I'm not worried about the loan. So it's you cannot have good reviews online.
And the reason that those reviews are good is because during the entire process, you're not leaving the home buyer or the realtor in the dark. You're making sure that they're up to speed, they feel comfortable. Nothing is left for them to get scared or worried about, whatever it may be. And that goes back to emotions, marketing with emotions. If you make sure these people feel comfortable, like they're also going through the process with you, then they're more likely to write these reviews and also refer more clients your way. Because when you refer someone, when I refer someone personally, I want to make sure that this person reflects who I am as a person. And if they're going to give you a bad experience, I feel like that reflects poorly on me.
Of course, it's an extension of you, right?
Yeah.
Whoever you refer out, and I tell the realtors, I don't take it lightly. If you extend me your business, it's an extension of your business. So if I act poorly, you may lose the client. So you say, well, if this is the lender she's working with or he's working with, then how good is he?
Exactly.
Right? So it's gonna
they think of you as a team, even though a lot of the time it's separate businesses.
A lot of people think we are even the same business, and I have to explain, no, we're separate business, But they always think of you two as the team, which is what you want the client to think. You want them to think like you're two together, working together to get it, to get them their goal, whatever the goal is. So.
Yeah, exactly. And another question that I had for you. So this was just talking more about closing home loans, because people that are trying to get into your field specifically, that's what it's all about, closing these loans. So is there just at the top of your mind anything that you would say to someone, a trick or a secret to closing, whether it's on time or early?
I'm known amongst realtors to not hand out a pre-approval letter.
Okay.
We're very, very strict, and we make that the point with all of our loan officers. So the trick on closing is the upfront work you put in. Once you're in escrow, you're too late, right? If the person has some ding on credit, but you wait till you resolve it within escrow, well, you're going to be late in that escrow, right? If there's a question about employment, there was a maternity leave that you didn't address, there was a disability you didn't address, there was gap in employment, there was a cash deposit in their checking account for $100,000 that you didn't address. If you wait to do all that work in escrow, you're late. The problem is when you're new into business, you're desperate. So you do anything to get a client in.
Yeah.
So you start over promising, under delivering. You start handing out pre-approval letters without vetting A to Z, being 100% sure. I mean, half my purchases in 2021 were non-contingent because the realtor calls and says we have to lift all contingencies. What can you do? Like, no problem. Let me do a full-on approval. And then let's write the offer.
Yeah.
Right. Let's do a no property yet. Let's just do a full-on approval.
And then with the real estate agents, do you find that there's a big difference in working with a more experienced versus a new real estate agent during the approval process?
Absolutely. I mean, the experienced realtors make our job much easier. First of all, because they do their own vetting.
Okay.
They don't just give you anyone they run into. They're like, hurry up, 5 minutes, pre-approve. I'm like, the guy doesn't even have a social security number. Like,
Yeah.
did you ask what they do in here, right? So the experienced realtors, but I wouldn't say experience has nothing to do with how many years you've held the license. They're unbelievably successful realtors who are amazing, have only been doing it for 2-3 years.
Wow.
The realtors who've been doing it for 30 years, and they're very difficult to work with.
And that's going back to the knowledge.
Right. Knowledge and your service and your honesty, those things, they don't come with the experience. You're either an honest professional or you're not, right? If you're dishonest and you do it for 30 years, you're just going to become more dishonest,
Yeah.
right? If you're an honest person, you're just going to be more honest because now you have a lot of business. So you have nothing to fear, right? You
Yeah.
can say no to a client and walk away. You have 10 in escrow, so you're not desperate. So I think the people that take shortcuts are the ones who are desperate, who are in that situation where they just want to get a client. And but the good realtors are hands-on, right? They team up with you. They're a team.
Yeah.
They don't say you did this, escrow officer did that, you said this. It's a team. It's a problem. It's everyone's problem. We get together, we solve it.
Yeah, they're looking out for the interests of their client.
Exactly. And there's a success, it's everyone's success. And they share it and they talk about their team members, whether it's an escrow officer, title person, lender. So the ones that make you feel like a team member, they get actually more out of you.
Yeah.
They get
And
my
is there
best service.
anything that a really good real estate agent can do to make the process more smooth? Is there anything they could address or any questions they can ask to make it a easier process?
There's a lot of things. I mean, the top ones I would say is patience, right? Okay, you found a buyer, be patient. Let's vet them. Let's not rush through approval, have you show 1,500 properties and then fall
Yeah.
out of escrow. It's a waste of your time, not mine, right? I'm sitting in my office. Realtor's the one that's driving around showing 100
Yeah.
properties, right? Writing offers, fighting with people. So be patient, trust the process, right? Obviously, if a loan officer has closed so many so many transactions, they must know what they're doing, right? It can't be luck. So trust the process, be patient, and then also be honest. Like if I say something, you got to convey that to the client.
Yeah.
Don't try to do things that are, just not honest, because clients catch up with you. And then unfortunately I get a lot of referrals, and maybe it happens the other way around too, but they fired a realtor that referred me the business.
Wow.
And it becomes a
And
very
they stay with you.
uncomfortable, yeah, so it becomes a very uncomfortable,
Yeah, I wonder who the issue is in that relationship.
it makes it very uncomfortable. Sometimes it's a misunderstanding, right? So I
Yeah.
try to salvage it and I try to mediate and try to fix it. But it happens the other way around too. People fire their loan officer. It happens.
Yeah.
It's not a
Yeah, but from everything you're saying, it sounds like you're a real mentor, you're an advisor. So it's not just the home loans aspect. It seems like your calling to make it your own business was the teaching aspect too. Because whether it's the 12 officers that you have working under you, or whether it's trying to salvage a relationship between a client and a real estate agent, making sure they're informed of the latest changes, it seems like that's your calling now. Maybe do you think your career is naturally going to progress in that direction?
I love what I do. A lot of people ask, would you eventually not do your own loans and just focus on building the business. So far, I've been trying to do both. I love doing loans. So
Yeah.
aside from the income aspect of it, it's such a pleasant experience when you deliver and the buyers call you. And I've had buyers where, things, sometimes memorable things stick with you, right? I've had buyers who were in escrow and were gonna lose their deposit, and somehow they got referred to me and I closed it. And at closing, it was this very cute family. Their entire family with their kids and their parents, like the grandparents.
Yeah.
They all came to my office
Oh,
with
wow.
flowers and scotch and
That's so sweet.
pastries, and you know how we do it, right? So
Yeah.
they brought, and I thought it's a party, right?
Yeah.
And it almost brought me to tears, and I was like, no amount of commission can replace
Yeah.
this.
Sometimes you don't
So that
realize how
experience-
important that is.
Right.
It might be the only savings the family has.
Right. Yeah, and they never dreamed of owning a home, right?
Yeah.
Some people, they thought they would rent forever. So somehow some opportunity came up and they were able to purchase something. And it's unbelievable to get to that point and see their reaction and their appreciation.
Yeah.
And it's
I know you're
priceless.
really busy and I know you have a lot of clients, but maybe we can pull you in to the Pocket Network so you can be an advisor on the Pocket Network site, because I feel like a lot of people can really benefit from you. It doesn't matter if they're working directly under you, but there's so many great points that you've made today that I feel like it's key information for anyone, whether they're starting out or if it's someone that's been in the industry for a long time. I feel like you focused on points that I might have thought were simple, but the more you elaborate on it, it makes a huge difference in the work and it leaves a huge impact on the client.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Looking
Yeah.
forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're so happy that you were
pleasure.
able to make
Thanks
it
for
today.
having me.
Thank you for your time. And just for everyone at home, you can find Artin on all social media. We will link all his social media before. Is there a specific handle that you have?
On Instagram, I'm very active.
Okay.
So I have my own personal page, which I do business on.
Yeah.
We also have a page for option one lending. So either pages.
Perfect. We'll link all of that below. And as always, the Pocket Network is across all social media. You can watch us on YouTube. You can listen to our podcasts on all the major outlets. We'll link all of that below as well at the Pocket Network. Thank you so much, Artin, for
Thank you so
being
much.
with us today. And I hope everyone at home got as much useful information as I did today. I feel like I learned so much. Just remember, change begins at home. So put in the work.